Hangout. Hopefully this will make things a little bit better than before. It is a lot simpler, of course. I don't know what's up with that. That's the first time I've ever had a complete breakdown of the connection. I don't know what the story was. Maybe there was a problem with my software. Maybe it's just the fact I set this up too early this time. I don't know, but at least now you guys can see me. And I'll tell you what, there might be some clever ways. For example, I know that I can share specific windows. And you know what? I might just do that to share some of the stuff that I want to share. For example, I can actually share my Flipboard. I can do that actually. And although I can't share my own video at the same time, but perhaps at least you can see me now. This is better. This is better quality. I hope this is. I'm gonna let people come back. Please go back to the other thread for those people who are still in the live chat on the other thread, and just post the part of the URL that helps people find out where this one is. Man, that's so frustrating and annoying. Anyway, I hope that this is better. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to prepare some stuff that I want to show off, including my little blog that I just wrote that I was trying to talk about. Status down here, and my Flipboard magazine, which is here. Boom. And if I do that, and I turn this off, I guess I can still show live content actually using the presentation thing. But yes, indeed, it looks like you can see me, so I can see. There's always a way to figure it out. What this means is, what the problem with this is that I think this means that I won't be able to play music. But you know what? I might even be able to do that if I switch to. I can do that at the end, but I won't be able to speak at the same time because I can only select a single mic at a time here. So, okay, I'm not going to try anything. I'm not going to try to take any risks anymore at the moment with doing that midstream. I'll try that right at the end. You can still see the thumbnail in the background there from Fox Morris. It is very good to see that so many of you guys have made it back, including Phil Nolan, Phoenix787, Gil Ferrand, Christina Japan. Oh, by the way, I really enjoyed all of you guys commenting last night on the what is it, Sex in Japan with Fugly Passive Aggressive People, which I thought was actually last night was a really fun video actually, and I really enjoyed getting to talk about both the Is Japan a Perverted Country part in the first half, and do women YouTubers or good looking people have an advantage on YouTube on the second half, which it sounds intuitive, of course they do, you might say, but I wanted to get the other part of that out there, which is that I don't think it's as straightforward as that at all. And And I think you have to think about it, again, success is if you don't think about it very hard, yeah, sure, they can get more views or whatever. But I was really happy with that video last night. So if you didn't get to watch 2.5 Oyajis last night, that was one of the better shows, and we talked about two really interesting subjects. One is Japan, extremely liberal, or is it socially conservative when it comes to sex? Of course, being in that discussion, we ended up talking mainly about whether Japan is totally hentai. And the second half talking about, I'm an optimist that you don't have to be good looking necessarily to be successful on YouTube. In fact, I think there are things about growing up not being popular that make us compensate for that in ways that I think pay off down the road, including on things like YouTube. But there again, you do also have to have the right outlook, including not being jealous of other people about things that you can't control. There's no point being jealous about someone because they're a female or because they're good looking, and and there are plenty. And if for the people who complain about YouTubers who do well on YouTube because they're female, geez, it's not like men don't already have enough advantages and enough other things, including things like getting paid, that we have to criticize some areas where they might have an advantage for once. And even then, as we talked about, it's not as straightforward as that. I thought that was a really great video last night, and I'd like to thank everybody who's on here who was able to watch that, so thank you for that. I'm also glad you could hear me now. I could tell that you couldn't really hear anything that I said before, which is a shame, because I had some stuff I wanted to talk about. But never mind. Let me go in and open up my Tokyo Tonight topics, because I can do it on the web version here and I can share that. The other thing I just wanted to quickly talk about was just before this video, part of the reason I took some time getting set up was because I was, let me see if I can screen share this, share. So what does that look like? It stretches. I see it stretches out a bit. If I could only recommend 10 videos on YouTube, I actually, the reason I did this was, as I mentioned before, I went and recorded on Friday a new series with Rochelle Kopp about business advice for doing business with Japan or working in Japanese companies. She is arguably the world's foremost expert on intercultural business consulting and intercultural business between Japanese and non-Japanese companies. And she's such a mind of, all these anecdotes and stories and experience that she has. And so, there's so many topics that you could talk about and so many different things. It's so cool talking with her about this stuff. We based the entire new series on topics that were based on questions that were in the comments of the first series. So basically every single episode that we recorded, we got about 10 in. We talked about them in more depth than last time. And the topics were all decided by you guys. They're actually by commenters who asked questions on the first series because she loved the comments so much. And so this is the thing, when you write those comments there, they don't just disappear. They actually have come back, and we've created an entirely new, awesome series, which I can't wait to get edited. But one thing that Rochelle mentioned to me was that, while she's very big on LinkedIn and Twitter and so on, she runs a business. She's very busy. She doesn't watch any online video at all. She doesn't know where to start. I was talking about we were in the space, and I'm saying, oh, there's Jenna Marbles. She's coming next week, and I'm going to go to an event to see her. We talked about Tofuku, who she really loves his blog and what they do and stuff like that. And we talked about people that we knew, and I said, oh, you got to watch his videos. So I said I'd put together a list of videos that I recommend for her to watch. And I did it as a blog, which I just posted before the show tonight. And these are them, basically. And for different reasons. These are all like an entry point for someone who doesn't watch online video about Japan. These aren't necessarily like my best friends, or these are I think videos that are significant for different reasons that I'm recommending to her as a starting point, and things that came up in conversations that I had before, during, and after the recording, just to go through what my top 10 list is. And I've got a question here. If there's any. The criteria is that basically these have to have had some kind of meaningful impact on the entire blogging scene, the Japan video blogging scene that are intended for someone who's looking for a starting place with YouTube. Here are my choices, and let me know if there's anything that you think I've left out. So the first one is the Black in Japan documentary by Rachel and Jung, which, for the reasons I wrote down there, I won't read the whole blog out, but basically, I think she's living the dream of someone who not only made an awesome documentary that they put a lot of effort into, but they actually got the full viral thing happen and the recognition that it deserves. Plus, she's proving that we can actually make broadcast quality documentaries and they can get recognized. So I thought that was awesome. Ami Yamato, who I'm a huge fan of, and I kind of explained why my mind was blown when I first watched her videos and why I loved that I was able to collab with her. Tofuku Interviews Japan. We talked a lot about Tofuku and just how everything they do is awesome, including this and just about every other video that they do, but I particularly like this video. We talked a lot about the cultural thing, about how different gaijins are treated differently. Based on Asian gaijins are treated differently from Caucasian-looking gaijins in Japan. And I mentioned this video by Ken Tanaka, which I still think is genius. Plus, of course, Kat McDowell was in it. So I mentioned this video. This is great, but we're speaking Japanese. Number 5 is a personal one. Yakitori, Jet Daisuke, he's always doing reviews of keyboards or musical equipment or cameras and stuff, which I always used to love all of his product reviews. And one day he just took all of that equipment, which he's always reviewing, and he made a really awesome production quality music video and a song that he made himself. And this is like way back in 2009. And I've been inspired since then to one day try to do the same thing as what he did, which baby steps. I'm getting slowly closer to it, but I still think of this video all the time whenever I get that idea. PDR is my favorite video maker, in Japan, and he's got a lot of different series which are awesome. I really like the convenience store stories about like horrible customers and stuff like that. But this series about being biracial in Japan, all in Japanese, but all subtitled in English. But the idea of sharing with a Japanese audience what it's like for him as a half, the sort of weird situations that he has to deal with. Oh, don't tell me that it's buffering again. Don't say that. I'm not seeing any trouble indicated with the settings on the output of the thing itself. Anyway, I'm just going to keep pushing through. Okay, it might be PDR, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's an awesome series there, and again, it's just genius. I was just watching a few episodes, and I lost track of time, and that's why I came back onto this late. The Christmas in Japan collab by Flipboard. This is going back to 2008. This was before I knew Victor, before I met Tokyo Kuni. But when you think about it, you look at who was in that video, and I was singing lines on it, and these were all people I didn't know. Hikosaemon was brand new, as was I. But Tokyo Kuni, Gimmeabreakman, Danny Chu, Tofugu, Apple Milk. I mean, we were all in this collab together in 2008, and this was like one of the first big community videos. You know, I mean, there were collabs that came before that, but I think this is one of the real one of the real groundbreaking, I call it ground zero for the Japan video making community, and I thought that was a really fun video to be in. The video, What Really Matters, the series by Henna Gaijin, the first episode of that, for all the reasons that you know, that I think that that's really cool, and it shows how excited commercial video makers are when they get onto YouTube. The Tokyo Stormtrooper, the original video, and again, a lot of people said, well, I could have done that, but no one else did. And, you know, this just shows how smart Danny Chu is, not just about being creatively smart, but also people didn't realize how smart he was doing business in the background at the same time. But being in the Stormtrooper thing, dancing all over Tokyo, I thought that was still just genius. And that's another, and this was a globally viral video. So that was another landmark video. And the time-lapse videos by Mock Moon and Darwin Fish and a few other people like that, again, they inspired me to try to make videos like that. And they showed me that this whole genre of videos that you couldn't really see on TV before. Now that you have YouTube and Vimeo, all of a sudden these are, you know, these are a thing. And these are something that inspired me to go get a DSLR and try to make videos and music like they did. And I mentioned Jenna Marbles. When I describe Jenna Marbles basically as a profane kind of masculine New Jersey sort of girl, who's got a very masculine, crass sense of humor. And Rochelle said immediately, oh, I wouldn't be interested in that. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't, but since I talked about her, I found her biggest video, which is an old one, about, I think, how to look beautiful or something like that. And I put that up there anyway, just for interest. But yeah, I thought that was, so that's a list of basically 10 recommended videos, plus the Jenna Marbles thing, just so that she could understand who I was talking about. And yes, I'm now back in the video, and that was a blog that I put up. At the same time as that blog happened, Dave Powell, who's a guy I guess a lot of you guys know as well, he mentioned that, I'll just quickly share the screen on this one as well. He basically shared with me a blog that he's put up, which you should go and watch anyway. It's basically a reaction video to getting hired at YouTube, and kind of shows what the magic is of being, you know, watching YouTube or working for YouTube. Everyone knows it's kind of cool to be able to go and get into Google and how hard it is. And apparently, you know, they actually were able to catch a really cool sort of reaction video to there being, you know, a big YouTuber who this person being hired mentioned that they were a fan of. They got the person to cooperate with delivering the message that she passed the final interview. And it's really cool. And I'm going to stop it there so that you go and watch it. I'll share the link after the video, but it is kind of cool. And yeah, you know, I guess you don't get that sort of thing happening at Amazon so much. According to the New York Times, they just pretty much sit at their desks and cry by the sounds of it. So, you know, it kind of shows, I guess, Google is pretty cool. And Microsoft is getting better, but, you know, you still don't see stuff like this. And anyway, I picked that up just before the show, and I thought that was kind of cool. So in terms of the topics that I have for tonight, I already actually showed one already, which is Nonbirihito, who I saw was in the comments. Actually has a new track called Paper Boat. I have a new track myself, which I put up earlier this week, called Floating, which I also put up a video for on Friday, and I really like it. It's like personally one of my favorite tracks that I've put up in months. And I wanted to make something light, something that you could put as like background sort of ambient music for making videos. And I think I got that one kind of right, and I've got two more tracks like it, although I must admit that was my favorite one that I put up first. So I'm trying to still tweaking the other two. If I can still play, I might play the other two at the end of this video. You can tell me actually at the end of this video which one to play next. But yes, and by the way, I can see, and I am looking at the comments at the moment. I can see Phoenix 787 really misses Japanicist, and I also agree that I hope he gets back into it. Phil Nolan, do you think she like being called masculine? Well, she's mellowed out a lot, but I think if you look at her old videos back in the day, she talks like a dude. You know, in fact, to the point, I was almost certain that she was being scripted by a very funny dude. But, you know, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, she used to be like semi-naked in like American football protective equipment, which looked hot. I mean, it worked for me. But, you know, it looked to me like she was being, you know, she was acting like one of these Jersey Shore girls from what I could tell, I mean, from looking at it from abroad and not being even American, this was the persona that she started out with. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I'm gonna share the screen. I wish I could share my screen and the and what I was sharing at the same time, or just share half of the screen, but that isn't how it works. But anyway, I'm going to SoundCloud. Nonbidishto makes this like I do. He makes royalty-free music, which a lot of his music I think is much better than mine. It's much more musical. And this is also very nice sort of backgroundy type music. You can use this on your videos. He is also a member of the Tokyo Digital Crew, which I've arbitrarily set up. It includes Ben Duncan. It includes Chito Makaran, who is also in the comments that I can see tonight. And it also includes Folkhart. And these are all people who basically agreed we're going to make music, and whatever we make, we're going to make it available for anyone to download and use on your videos royalty-free. Because we get a kick out of, seeing what we create getting reused and helping the community that we love, which is this community. And this is a really, really cool track, so go check it out, Paper Boat. I do not need to see that. This was an Instagram I took this week, just walking around. It was kind of nice. I thought about... in fact, one thing I had an idea for tonight was showing my own Instagram creative process, but I can't do that because the capture isn't working at the moment. I guess I might have to I get the feeling it might even be a PC RAM problem that I was having before, so maybe I have to reboot my PC. There's a little story here about why is high-tech Japan still using cassette tapes and faxes? And that's a good question. And thank you, by the way, Phoenix787. Yes, I'm glad that you like using my music, and and honestly, I'm not really fussed how you give credit. Actually, I like it if you show something on the video, that's cool. If you just leave it in the comments below, that's cool as well. But yeah, I appreciate if you make it so that other people who see that and like it can also discover it and use the music as well. But however you do that is up to you. Tipodna or typo DNA. That might be how it is. Thank you for saying that floating is ace. I really like it. For me, just when I was recording it, I just left the loop on and I just left it on for like half an hour listening to it. And I think that's actually kind of the nice thing about that track. It's and that's why I think it's good video background music. But we'll see. Hopefully some people can use it. But we will see how it goes. So why is high-tech Japan using cassette tapes and faxes? My view on this was a lot of discussion around this, and it is a bit confusing. You come to Japan, there's no FPOS when I came here. You couldn't use credit cards. Even today, you still have to, for signing up with NTT, like with some contracts that I said for this internet, which isn't working tonight, I had to send a fax, and and they wouldn't allow me to send an email or to call. And this is from the telco, the biggest telco monopoly in Japan. I had to go to a convenience store to use a fax to send the contract. So yeah, it's kind of Homeboy's editing is on point. I don't know who you're talking about, Christina, but and by the way, I did mention before as well that who's editing? Oh, Street English TV. Oh yeah, well he's very good at editing. That's one thing with him, and he's actually gotten a lot of training and some help with that in the past. So he is like a pro level editor. But yeah, so the thing with faxes here. What Japan tends to do is that they invested so much in their infrastructure. I mean, when faxes was something that only existed like in businesses in the West, Japanese companies succeeded at selling faxes to every home. And, when we were just using phones for phone calls, Japanese were like sending, recipes and letters and all the sort of stuff to one another through faxes. Every home had them. And the thing is, Japan overinvested in fax infrastructure. And when you've got a lot of very old people as well, they found adapting to computers, because Windows wasn't as universal in Japan as it was in America when it came out. It just meant that the fax infrastructure was ahead of its time when it was set up here, just like Back to the Future might have said if they were looking at Japan. I mean, it was actually kind of accurate for Japan, Marty McFly getting fired by faxes. But this is the thing. Japan was ahead of its time with faxes, but it overinvested in the infrastructure, and that's made it harder for Japan to move forward. There's plenty of other examples like that in other countries, in Western countries. Generally, because only a few companies tend to dominate certain types of technology, it means that it's not that Japan is behind, it's just that the technological leaps are out of sync. And it means that, for example, like with trains, America invested in roads, so much in roads that it didn't have the money left over to build trains. And so Japanese train technology is way more advanced than America. But at the same time, America invested in a digital network framework that allowed FPOS, for example, paying by electronic payments, which Japan didn't have for a long time. But when Japan did roll out internet, which was like way later than in America, America was like way ahead with 33 and 56K modems. And then Japan said, well, if we're going to give everyone internet a bit late, we'll give them the best technology we have at the time, which was optical cable, which meant that even now, although you wouldn't believe it watching my stream tonight, Japan has the fastest internet in the world. It's just that the timing of the technology upgrades was out of sync. I don't know. It's kind of like, in some ways it looks behind, in some ways it looks ahead. But you have to appreciate when you go to America from Japan, the reverse is true as well. And by the way, Japan was doing text messaging, before iMode. Japanese were using internet on mobile phones in the 1990s, like seriously, like 5 or 6 years before smartphones even started to sell. So like I say, it's just that, Japan is an island country and it's able in some ways to get ahead, in some ways it's behind. The toilets, and I was just going to say, Gilfarian, that is the number one. When I leave Japan, I feel like I'm going literally back into the Middle Ages when it comes to toilets. The fact that toilets don't have washlets, the fact I have to wipe myself 50 times to get as clean as you get in Japan, wiping twice because you have water jets to assist with the cleaning. It's like the difference between putting your car through a car wash or wiping it down with a newspaper is the difference that, of toilets. And it doesn't bother you until it literally feels like, when I hear about my grandparents talking about in the 1950s up to then, people used to use mainly newspaper instead of toilet paper. That is the kind of difference and the cold toilet, exactly, Christina. Sitting down in the cold toilet, that's something everyone just tolerates and puts up with, right, back in Western countries. But you don't have to tolerate it in Japan to the point. I've lived here 16 years. I forget what that's like. And when I go back, I go overseas. I try to avoid going overseas in winter, full stop. But if I do, yes, I have to sit down on those ice block toilet seats. Are you kidding me, man? I can't go back to living like that. You can laugh at faxes and, sure, you can laugh at how behind Japan is with cassette tapes and faxes. But seriously, if I would take the combination of cassette tapes, faxes, and washlets over more advanced, over email and DVDs and freezing cold toilets. Seriously, when it comes down to it, where do you want the technology to be, if you ask me? And yes, I know, Phil Nolan, that they are starting to sell toilet washlet seats in America, but you can't find them anywhere. You stay in any hotel. They're rare, and they're only for the few people who understand the merits of them, who are probably predominantly Asian consumers who want them for their homes, and maybe super rich, freaky people, maybe porn stars, I don't know. But anyway, the other topics that I have, so by the way, you can see all my topics, of course, on Flipboard, which there's no point having it connected anymore. It's a fantastic app, so go and get it, and you can follow me on it, and you can actually see not only the few topics I actually whittled down for the Tokyo Tonight topics that I talk about, but also for the also all the other stuff. I've got a bunch of magazines of all the recommended Japan reading, all the recommended technology reading, Japanese language stuff, all that sort of stuff. There is paper by non-reading still. That is one, and you can actually play it in the app yourself. So seriously, follow me on Flipboard, because that's how you keep up with this, and that's what I'm going to be reading off for the rest of the night. Nihon John. Nihon John. So Nihon John is this former number one host, or number one foreign host, and number two overall host in Japan. He used to be a Mormon. He left the Mormon church, and he became the biggest kabuki host, in Japan for a few years. And now he has a regular job. I don't think he's disclosing what that is, so I won't say what it is. He's a really, really interesting guy, and he's about to release a video series talking about, one, how it was for him leaving. His family is very involved in the Mormon church, and how it was for him going through the process of leaving the Mormon church, which is interesting, because I've got a lot of respect for Mormon people that I know. They seem to be very good people, but I do understand it's a very, when you got very conservative and very, fixed religious beliefs of any religion, it's kind of very tough to make a break with that. And that's a very interesting discussion, one. And then the host discussion is going to be fascinating. So go subscribe to Nihon John. I'm going to write the name in the comments right now, but it's just Jon, Nihon John, just as one word. If you haven't, go subscribe to him. He has a series coming up talking about these things, but he has a great Halloween video that he took just going around Shibuya, There's a bunch of very good Shibuya Halloween videos, including one by Hikosaemon as well, but he has a really, really good video, and he's got some skills, and he's got a really good story to tell, which is coming up super soon, so make sure you follow the guy. Here's an interesting question. I won't put it on the shared screen at the moment, but oh, you can't see that. It's out of focus, and that's too small. Okay, but the question is, should driverless cars kill their own passengers to save a pedestrian? This came up on Quartz, and it's an interesting philosophical question. I've just decided recently that's it. I think cars are just going to become like these mobile rooms, basically, with like electronic drivetrains on the bottom, and they're just going to transport people around, and people are not going to have to drive cars, and people are not going to want to drive cars. In Tokyo, no one wants to drive a car in Tokyo because of all the traffic jams and everything like that. And this is something that I guess isn't going to happen to that extent. You're going to have cars with autopilot that can drive partially, but you still have to be on the steering wheel or whatever. That sort of thing's probably going to happen by 2020, and it's probably going to be another 5 or 6 years after that before you can actually get cars where forget about it, turn around, not even face forward, and just, play video games or sleep or, do work or study or do whatever as you're traveling between places. But for me, I can't wait for the day, and this is where it's all going with all this artificial intelligence, the navigation, the robot cars. I'm going to go to sleep at night. I'm going to wake up at the beach I want to go surfing at the next morning. I won't even remember driving. And I think this is going to fundamentally change transportation. It's going to mean you're going to need airplanes, at least for overland travel. Train travel is going to become less necessary, and it's going to be much more convenient. I can't wait for that. But there is this question: if all of these are robot cars, and these robot cars are programmed to, for example, in a traffic jam situation, to work like a train and all move forward at the same time, that would be awesome. But at the same time, they would have to avoid cars with, for example, regular drivers driving cars. Imagine if you were like a real scumbag and you wanted to just come and and you knew that these cars had anti-collision systems, that they would get out of the way if you were going to get ready to go through and shunt them. And just think, just take one scumbag on a highway in a traffic jam, just coming through, driving really close to the cars in front, making them get out of the way, and you could, it would ruin the whole thing. So I think you need the cars to be on separate roads is the answer. But here's the question: if you have a collision avoidance system which prioritizes the life of a pedestrian, and it's something like there's a pedestrian by a cliff or something, and the only way to avoid the pedestrian was to drive off a cliff and kill the occupant. How do you program the car to run over the pedestrian and save the occupant, or to drive off the cliff, or to avoid the pedestrian and drive off the cliff and kill the occupant? And most people seem to agree, apparently, to kill the occupant. I hope that situation doesn't come up very often, frankly, if you ask me. Maybe if you make it like the Demolition Man type thing, where the whole car can become like foam or whatever, and it can protect the person even driving off a cliff. Maybe that's the way that you do it. But I don't care. I don't care. There's already, even based on the Google car trials, where they do have accidents still on driverless mode, but invariably the accidents are more to do with the environment around, and they're trying to make the cars more intelligent, dealing with the environment around. But apparently, even then, they still have less accidents than with regular drivers at the wheel. They're still safer than I think if you're going to be like the insurance companies or whatever, and statistically these cars are going to have less fatal accidents and less frequent crashes. The insurance companies are going to have to reward drivers that prefer to use auto drive mode. And that's going to favor designing cars that don't require people to drive, which means we're going to go back into the old-fashioned horse-drawn 19th century carriages where you're just going to be sitting in these like mini rooms, like little Tokyo apartments. And geez, imagine you can just wake up in the morning and be at work, or you can be there, wake up in the morning and go and be wherever you want to be. The time loss and the tiredness of travel. And this is another thing I was talking about with Rochelle. She lives in Silicon Valley. She's got to drive for work 3 or 4 hours a day for different meetings. And that's time that she's becoming exhausted, that she's not productive, she can't work, she's getting tired. And imagine if she could just sit inside and use her car as an office and be going between meetings and working seamlessly as you go in between. Plus in Japan, they're already experimenting with like putting power cables under the roads that you can induct the power into the cars, so the cars would actually charge. You wouldn't even need to put actual even batteries into the cars if they're driving over these inductive power cables, which would be under the highways. So these cars will actually charge up while they're on the highways. So you wouldn't even need that much power. So I think there's all sorts of very cool stuff here. And while that's an interesting philosophical discussion, I still think, I'm convinced, this can't happen soon enough. I wanted smartphones. As soon as I saw Japanese feature phones, I wanted a full-on like computer and a smartphone in 2000. And I complained endlessly about not having it, and it took 10 years. And I'm going to say 10 years on this is what, 2025? But I want this by 2020. I want to have a car. I would buy a car. I haven't owned a car since I came to Japan, but I would buy a car that could like transport me anywhere in Japan while I'm asleep and have me wake up. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think Japan is going to be at the front of this. I don't think America can do it because they're going to be held back by being afraid of lawsuits. And like the question that KNS TV is asking, what about drunk auto driving? It'll be a problem in America because in America, they're not going to, insurance companies and people with lawsuits are not going to accept there not being someone proactively in the driving seat. And there's a problem with this because apparently where they've been doing this in Silicon Valley with the Google cars, they have these people who sit at the driving wheel who have to be there ready to take over the car if there's an emergency the whole time, but they're not touching the wheel because the whole point of the exercise is to practice letting the car drive itself. So how boring do you think that job is of sitting at a steering wheel of a car being driven around but not being allowed to drive? How much better is it having a driver who's going to be asleep half the time because they're not supposed to drive? And the idea that they can't be drunk or whatever, I mean, again, I think that you have to have a leap of faith that allows a system that has drivers who are not in any position to drive and that the car will just shut down and stop in an emergency. And this should allow drunk drivers. These should be taxis. These should be carriages that, even no one owns, that you would just get into it. It would just transport you home in the morning, if you ask me. But anyway, I think this is super interesting. And this is something that Japan is going to kick America's ass because America is so litigious. It's going to be completely inhibited and restrained by lawyers from being able to do this sort of thing. And Japan's going to set up the framework better, and they're going to have better technology. And, they already had the navigation technology in Japan, like 10 years ahead of every other country, and it's way better here. So I think it's going to work here, and I think that is kind of cool. Sorry, I talked for too long about that. Let's keep going. What else we got? I talked a little bit about Ableton. It's something I'm getting into using now, and I'm just thinking next week is my 40th birthday. Maybe push 2. I don't know. I want to get comfortable with the software first, but I've had a lot of people recommend it to me. And I just discovered this week that actually Korg, the software that I use, IK oscillator that I use for making my music, you can actually integrate with Ableton, which means on the PC I can master tracks using it. I can actually do stuff like adding reverb, controlling volume that I can't do on the iPad app. So I can use a sequencer. I can actually make the tracks a lot better. They're a bit dodgy in live tracks at the moment. Plus, I could also, if I could use something like the Push 2, which is a very expensive piece of kit. But what I've seen people do with that, I can make that something that, professional people who do like concerts and stuff use. If I could I don't have the free time. This is a problem. It needs to be intuitive. But everything I'm seeing says that it's intuitive, and I don't know. So I'm kind of tiptoeing in. If I can get comfortable with Ableton, you might see me get into doing some more serious stuff. And one of my little dreams I've always been a DJ. I've always had a very clear idea inside my head of the types of tracks that I want to make. I've always wanted to make it. I've dabbled with music creation in the past. I got out of it for various reasons, but now I'm feeling really encouraged to come back into it. And it's something that I hope that these other guys who are out there also making music and so on as well. It'd be something to kind of do in a sort of a group thing. But yes, I don't know. I'm sort of indeed non-BD still. I also saw Ableton's interface and closed the window as well, but I'm going to come back to it and challenge it a couple of times because of what it enables. And there's a few things that it might enable, including the ability to actually collab on tracks, by just sharing the sound files with each other. But yes, it's and this is the thing, as Phil Nolan says, it's not worse than the other pro apps, but what I particularly like about Ableton is not so much the software itself, although guys at YouTube said, hey, dude, you should use this, and were showing it to me and so on, that they were playing around with it. It is the push. It is the push device, which you can you hook it up to the PC, but you don't have to even touch the PC to make music with it. It's a very intuitive interface, and that is what I like. And the fact that you can get a professional mastered output from it. So anyway, we'll see. It's a bit of a challenge for me, but who knows what sort of a fire I'm going to make, Christine, in Japan. But damn, I'm pretty sure I can make decent music. I mean, what I'm making at the moment is based on 5 loops being sequenced in a certain way that I'm getting comfortable doing. But, now I want to do more. And I want to figure out how to do that in a way that also allows me to be a dad and very busy with work and going through a midlife crisis and all these other sort of things that I have that take up my time, that don't give me a lot of time that I would have had 20 years ago to sit down and just lock myself in a room and learn this for 2 weeks. But we'll see how it goes. I am going to hey, thanks for the tip, Phil Nolan, Tornado Twins. I'm going to look them up because I'm looking for some good tutorials from a very entry perspective, right? I want to do some very specific things. I just want to sequence, I want to master, and I want to put stuff together, and I want to use push because it looks cool with all the colored buttons. So I'm very much in the beginning of all of this. And Moenja, I haven't tried Renoise or Renoir. I guess that's what that is. That's not Renoise. I haven't. I'll look it up. Thank you for the tip. But anyway, this label, I think I've seen this when I've been overseas, and it's never really registered with me. Super Dry. There's this brand called Super Dry, which actually has kanji about it. It's got really weird Japanese all over it. A lot of people think it's a Japanese brand, apparently, but as this article points out, it's kind of interesting. Rocket News did this article on Super Dry, pointing out it's actually not sold in Japan, and most Japanese people are a bit like freaked out by it, just the same way that we kind of, when we see English in Japan, this is like a deliberate reverse English. It's a British brand that uses weird Japanese on shirts and stuff like that. And I like the shirts. I've got a couple of like rip-offs of them that I got in Malaysia. I like the quasi-weird Japanese and wearing it around here, actually. It's kind of a reverse troll. Plus, I think it's kind of cool, and I like the brand. I didn't know anything about it till I read this thing on Rocket News, which is featured on my Flipboard, so go check that stuff out. There's a really, really cool, I don't know if you can see that. You can't really see that. Maybe I need to make my screen brighter. Let's do that. Boom. Boom. There's a bunch of, for the rejected logos for the 2020 Olympic logo. Will that focus? It is there. You can see that. That's really cool. That's a great logo. And there's a bunch of other logos like that, which are now coming back into the new contest. And by the way, even people outside Japan can make logo designs for the new logo contest. I don't have the link here, but I'm sure you can Google it and find out. It's a bit like the New Zealand flag thing. You know, anyone can submit a design suggestion, and they're going to do it much more publicly this time. It was really a fix last time. It was Netsu guys supporting one of their own and really not paying any attention to these other designers who had very good designs. So it'll be really interesting to see if we get a much better design the second time around for the 2020 Olympics. There's my Instagram. That was a nice photo. I'll show you another week my workflow. I'll love to show you some more stuff about how I make music and how I make my photos and stuff on this, because it's all on this. And it's very, very easy to do, and I don't do very much time. Raymond Ultra. Slow clap. Yes, actually, it was. I remember when I was actually on the debating team in high school once, and I was at a school of high school that went from the equivalent of now what is it? Is it grade 13 or grade 12 is the final year in the grade system? I think it's grade 12, right? In which case I would have been. My school was from grade 7 to grade 12 in New Zealand. High school in those days, Form 1 to Form 7. Form 3 to Form 7. So I guess that would be from grade 8 to grade 12. But anyway, 2,000 boys, just boys, 5 years, nothing but, other dudes. And the school assembly, you have this kind of police state kind of dictator guy who reads out all the school notices for, cricket, such and such team meeting for, such and such room at such and such time. And, it's like a half hour of notices every morning, but occasionally someone would slip in like a prank, and it would get through the net. And the best one ever was someone else, a meeting for the debate team they were at lunchtime. I was like, really? I hadn't heard about that. I said, yeah, the senior debate team, the intermediate debate team, and the junior debate teams will all be meeting in room 12. All the debate teams will be engaged in a practice debate all together. It will be a mass debate. And as soon as the words escaped his mouth, he just froze, this kind of Gestapo kind of teacher. And 2,000 boys started laughing at the same time that someone had got that through. That was kind of cool. That wasn't a private school, by the way. This was in New Zealand. I know this is weird, but regular schools in New Zealand, they divide the boys and the girls, which makes us all completely socially retarded. But yes, I thought that was like one of the most epic school notices that someone managed to slip that through. And yes, being in the debate team after that wasn't a good image for a time as well, but it was worth it because I don't know who did it, but they did a very good job with that. So yes, as I mentioned before, a new series of how to not screw up in Japan. I love that one, Hemingford Gray 62. That's also very good. Just for those who are reading, the Biscal notice when you was the headmaster's daughter's tortoise was AWOL. But anyway, I met Rochelle Kopp again on Friday. We recorded a whole new series, and it was so good. It was so good. I mean, we came out of the thing just buzzing. Like, again, we took all of your feedback. We talked more about the topics in more depth. We took your topics that you asked for. But we still didn't have enough time to cover it all. We came back, we're going to have to do, and we actually left a major subject out, which you'll find out in the last episode. And she's like, it's okay. I'll be back in February. We can do season 3 then, and we can start with that topic. And we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And the season 3 will be based on your comments from this season. So watch it when it's up, which will be in a while. And yeah, it's going to be really awesome. So look out for that. What else have we got here? Goromaru, the star fullback of the Japan rugby team from the World Cup, who was like the hero of Japan's win over South Africa. He's been picked up by the Queensland Reds rugby franchise to play in the next Super Rugby competition, which is great. On the one hand, that this is like one of the top club teams in the world that pick up a Japanese player for a really important position in the team. At the same time, though, Japan is going to have a team in this competition, and you'd kind of like all the best Japanese players to be on the Japanese team. But I think it's a really smart move by the Australian Union to be picking up really popular Japanese players ahead of the 2019 World Cup. The next World Cup is going to be in Japan. So trying to improve the image of Australia and getting Japanese people to be Australian rugby fans, I think it's a really smart move. And right now, the Japan halfback actually plays for a New Zealand team, the champion team of the whole South Africa, New Zealand, Australia competition. So yeah, but it's really great for Goromaru, and it's great for the sport, and it's great for Japan's image internationally. They have to be producing the same way it's been producing with soccer players who've been getting into some top clubs. It's great that now they're starting to do with rugby players, and it's about time, because Japan has some great rugby. This took a long time to come out, but I guess you guys have seen from the summer party, Victor finally put up the video that he was shooting at the party of what different YouTubers love and hate about our bodies. That was a really fun video. It's kind of cool to actually now go back and see the party that was back in September. It was a great party. There was lots of cool people there, and that is a good video to go and make sure that you watch. As I mentioned earlier, the video last night, What's Up Asia was on again this week. Remember, the first Wednesday every month I do What's Up Asia with Steve Miller from the Asian News Weekly podcast. It's actually just been picked up by the Straits Times. He's kicking ass. He's got one of the biggest podcasts in all of Asia at the moment, covering Asian news. And we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment. We did a really good show on Wednesday, so I'll check that out. It's What's Up Asia? Not great, but doing better than the Middle East is the title. And we just have kind of a fun, but also a very kind of, in-depth talk about what's going on around the entire world. A lot of people wanted me to talk about this the other night, which I haven't talked about yet, which is the 6 types of Japanese that you'll meet while living in Japan. I have to be honest, this was on Rocket News, and I was kind of near about the list, but a lot of people told me, not so much in Tokyo, but outside of Tokyo, this list is really true. And so I'll go through it. Actually, I'll go through the list because I think this is it's interesting enough, and some other people kind of came back and people who I respect really validated this. So they talk about the helpful hito, the Japanese person who is basically the person who comes out and always is being very helpful to tourists or to anyone who's in trouble. And there's a lot of foreigners who will do this. Again, maybe you don't see that so much in Tokyo, but you definitely see it in the countryside. You have the gaijin hunter. Gaijin hunter, as I would understand, is someone who wants to date foreigners, but this isn't that so much. This is more just someone who just wants to hang out with foreigners or whatever, is kind of latches onto foreigners. And that can be a little bit awkward, I guess. There is the international ninja, the person who is Japanese who has lived overseas, but they don't brag about it. They're very discreet about it. You don't know it, but then you'll find out one day all of a sudden this person lived in Canada for 10 years and is fluent in English. Again, in Tokyo, when they're there, they're out there, and there are whole communities like that. But I guess in the countryside, you get that a little bit more. This is a big one, the wannabe Westerner, the I love America Japanese. I've met a lot of Japanese like that who love America. They thought if I'm white, I must be able to play guitar. And I said, I can't play guitar. And they said, I'll take this guitar. I'm pretty sure you can play it. Just play it. I was like, seriously, dude, I can't play guitar. But yes, I've had this kind of a thing where you have these weird expectations. And then they took me to a batting center saying, just play some baseball. You can play for our team. I've never played baseball. In my country, we only have cricket. We don't play baseball. So just swing. Don't talk. It's okay. You'll be okay. And I'm there missing every single ball. And he's like, yeah, the ball's a bit too low. You're a tall guy, right? And yeah, I think that's probably it. But yes, you do have the wannabe Westerners and so on who love that. The English vampire, I like to call them ego bandits, people who are constantly trying to practice English with you. And the gaijin reminder, the person who reminds you all the time that you are a foreigner by seeing your face and say, oh, no, I don't speak English. And yeah, I mean, I guess they exist. I don't know, I'm a bit meh about it. I can kind of see how it's more true in some places than other places. Oh, was this buffering again? Phoenix, well, I don't know, refresh or do something like that. I don't know. Ben Duncan, you can play guitar. Well, there you go. You are the reason that these horrible stereotypes are imposed on us. So this is interesting. Tokyo, apparently the whole problem, and I'm one of the people who does it, walking around looking down at the phone all the time. They're putting around train stations now posters saying, don't look down at your phones walking around. And I was kind of like, well, I'd never noticed those posters before because I was walking around looking down, but they've actually got toilet paper with this messaging on it as well. So I guess they're trying to catch you in any situation where you might be distracted from your smartphone. But you know what? Even then, I'd only momentarily notice it. I mean, the toilet's like the main place that you look at the smartphone. So they're trying anyway. They're trying to get people to stop walking around and bumping into people with their smartphones, which is a big deal, I guess. But Burger King is releasing an imitation of the Big Mac, which actually I ate like 3 years ago when I was out for a limited time, and it was actually really good. They are actually offering like a discount, like 50% off if you bring in a Big Mac. I don't know why you would buy a Big Mac and bring it to Burger King and show them for a 50% discount on their burger, but I think it actually does taste better. I like the fact that they use fresh meat and that they grill it in Burger King. I prefer Burger King burgers. And I'm probably going to go and get one of these. But it's a bit of a weird campaign that they have, that they'll give you, they want to prove, I guess, that they have this imitation Big Mac, but it tastes better with their meat, which I think it does, actually. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. 2 days ago, YouTube just set in place that if you have, you know what, I haven't used this, like if you have YouTube, if you have Google Cardboard, as I do, you can, 2 things. One, you can now watch any YouTube video on Google Cardboard format. And in addition to that, YouTube is now supporting not just 360 video format, where you can just look around anywhere and see a video image, but 3D 360, like virtual reality, independent 3D in any direction. So not just like 6 cameras, but 12 cameras, like ocular vision in any direction. And Ben Duncan, the BK King, the Big King, is indeed what that is called, and it's actually quite good. And Phil Nolan has done a video on cardboard, so actually I should check that one out, and as should everyone here. But yeah, it's kind of cool now, and they actually also in the YouTube space, they have rigs that can record now virtual, like 360 and 3D at the same time. So I'm probably going to book that stuff just for the sake of trying it out and seeing what it looks like. I'm sure it might give you a headache, but you know, it's the idea that it'll literally put you in the place where you'll be able to see with depth and look around everywhere. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get out of that, especially from like outfits like National Geographic and places like that, you know, that can just get the best equipment and shoot everything in HD. But YouTube is already supporting that, so that is really, really cool. This also blew my mind this week. The Lightro, which invented the Lightfield Camera, which is, you can take a photo, but you can adjust where it focuses on afterwards. It takes like photos or detects data at different depths. They've created the first ever Lightfield camera for virtual reality, where you just put this thing in a room, and it can actually, based on the light in the room, assess distance and depth at the same time in any direction, which means that unlike a YouTube 360 video where you can look around and see depth, but you're still planted on the spot where you are, this can actually recreate the room that you were in virtual reality. It's like throwing a sensor in a room, like in Prometheus, for example, where they throw these sensors in a room and it scans all around the room and creates a 3D model of the room that it's in. That's what this camera does. So it doesn't just take a depth, and you know, it doesn't just take a photo of the room from one perspective that you have to stand in. It'll take a photo of the room, and you'll be able to then go in full virtual reality and walk around the room later on. That's mind-blowing from a camera. And the main applications for this are going to be integration with CG virtual reality to create, you know, ultra-realistic virtual reality environments that are done with a mix of CG. But that is still super cool. I didn't realize that you need 10K to book the YouTube Space LA. Well, it's only 5K for Tokyo, although Tokyo, it's a much smaller space. But there we go. I guess I can book. It's kind of nice that I can book in LA. But El Camino, you know, keep at it, man, because yeah. Well, you know, and in terms of, you know, subs goals, I think it's baby steps. These things do tend to accelerate. I think it's nothing wrong with having 1,000 in the beginning. Nice little Instagram I had the other day, which I was going to show you how I make that, and that's pretty much it. The awesome new Force Awakens trailers, the Okinawa situation, they've just sent down the Tokyo riot police down to Okinawa because obviously they don't trust the local police anymore, because the government of Okinawa is actually has said that they won't allow more construction of this new American Marine base, but the central government's doing it anyway. and they're asking for out-of-prefecture police to protect the construction yards. They don't trust the local police, and they have now the Tokyo riot police rounding up all the Okinawan protesters who don't want any more Americans, American bases or American forces to be based down there. Twitter. Oh, Twitter this week. Twitter replaced all of the stars with hearts. What do you think about this? This upset me, actually. When I said upset me, if all of a sudden now my feed is full of pink hearts where I used to have a lot of stars. And the thing is, when I would favorite something on Twitter, it's not always an endorsement. Sometimes I just want to save the link for later to read the article that it's on. Sometimes it's something I find interesting. Sometimes it's something I want to recommend. It's not always necessarily a like. I think, again, this is Twitter unnecessarily trying to be too much like Facebook, or trying to, they've got a very simple, very effective formula, and I think that they're messing with it. I don't like the hearts being everywhere, and it makes it all of a sudden something that I might have starred before, even though I don't necessarily like it or agree with it, but I find it interesting and I want to share it for a discussion purpose. Now I'm putting a like on it. It looks different, right? It looks like, why would you like that? And this is something that happens on Facebook sometimes. I've had Bobby Judah, like, why did you like that Yuta Aoki thing about, the superficial thing about people who want to meet foreigners for today, which, by the way, was a fucked up thing to attack someone for something that they liked in the first place. And for me, I was just trying to endorse the guy, help the guy. But the thing is, now this opens me to being attacked for this sort of thing on Facebook on Twitter, all over the place as well. When, it's not something, it's not necessarily a like. So, I don't know. I don't like it. And I think it's just Twitter kind of, honestly, they kind of, it's like New Coke. Don't mess with they don't need to change the formula. I think it already works perfectly well, but that's just me. That is Nihon John and the build-up, the preview to his series talking about being a host. That is going to be awesome. Go and subscribe to him. You're not going to want to miss those. They're going to be really good. There's nothing better than a guy who's got a story to tell. That is What's Up Asia, which is also available on an audio podcast version, of course, and you can subscribe to Asia News Weekly for all of his weekly news from all over Asia. But a big part of that is the show that we do together for 1 hour together once every month, which is up for this week, and it was a great discussion, so go check that. I've never tried New Coke, but all I understand is that everyone didn't like it, and they went back to the old Coke afterwards. This week, they officially reached Koizumi said in 2003. Japan had like 1 or 2 million foreign tourists a year, and the infrastructure here was terrible for foreign tourists. There's no English signs, no English help, and half the hotels would turn away foreigners because they couldn't talk to them. And Koizumi said, by 2020, we want to have 20 million foreign tourists in Japan. And I laughed when he said that. I said, that's great that you want to have more foreign tourists, but you don't have anything of the infrastructure to handle a number like that. That is impossible. Japan will never have 20 million foreign tourists unless it dramatically changes to be able to accommodate them. And 5 years ahead of schedule this week, Japan officially reached that target that Koizumi set back in 2002. Japan officially now has 20 million foreign visitors in the last year. They achieved the target 5 years early, and they deserve some credit. They've actually made some changes to actually make Japan a lot more foreign friendly, at least for tourists, and it's paying off hugely at the moment. So now they've reset the target to 30 million by the Olympics, and you know what? I think it's achievable. So that's amazing. I doubted it when it came out. I remember when that goal was set, and that's pretty awesome. Last night, the show Sex in Japan with Passive-Aggressive Fugly People was a great video. I tried to talk about this on the initial recording of this. It was great. I think we talked about, first of all, about is Japan, sexually liberal or conservative, and there's a bit of stuff in both directions. We talked about the UN controversy, about the commissioner who came in and just said Japan isn't doing enough. And then the second half, we talked about this big debate that's been going on with lots of people at the moment. Do good-looking people or women have certain advantages on YouTube? A lot of you guys here, Christina in Japan, Ben Duncan, a bunch of people who are Phoenix and so on, were involved in the discussion, and it was a great discussion last night. Actually, I really enjoyed it. I thought a lot of really good points that have came up talking about this with Victor. I thought it was a really good video last night myself. I thought that was one of our better shows. So you can still obviously watch it online. The title was just there as a title to try to capture all the things that we're planning to talk about. The advantages that ugly people or good-looking people, and I like to fight for the ugly people, because I think that not being popular or not being, I think it makes people complacent, having everything too easy too early in life. I think, being unpopular in high school and having to struggle a bit, actually. Well, I mean, sometimes you do get good-looking people who work hard, and I can't stand that. But yeah, I kind of like it. People blossom. A lot of people blossom late. And that was like that was the point I was trying to make. And what is success? Is success having 20 million trolls following you, or is it having, you know, I think quality of audience stands for something, and that's why that's right, Dina81, you said I will fight for fug power, as I like to call it. I will fight to the end. And this is the thing. I think we are awesome. We have an awesome community here, and it's people who are like people who work. We think, you know, we have to compensate for other shortcomings by actually using our brains and using the other stuff that we've got. And damn, I think that just makes us better. If you ask me, you know, I'll be a union leader for that. No, and as I mentioned, I think there's a stage. I think you can get away with it 320s, like doing nothing, just being kind of lazy and good looking. But after 30, you know, you got to back it up with actual, you know, achievements. And I think that's what happens when, you know, when all that time spent not being popular in high school pays off down the road, because, you know, that turns into stuff which converts into having much more interesting lives later on, which then turns into attractiveness. You actually become, I mean, in a way, I think there's no question. I pull a lot better. I've pulled a lot better in the last 15 years than I did through my university and high school years. And it's just because I've spent so much time and energy on building up so much interesting stuff that I've done that helps. And, you know, it makes everyone cooler. It makes you cooler, I think. Being able to do lots of stuff, or being able to be knowledgeable about certain stuff, being able to help people with certain stuff. And that in itself becomes its own sort of thing that helps you get by. And that's where I think my crowd, the people that hang out here, I think that's what that's the sort of crowd that we are, and that is why we are taking over. That's what I say. Check the video out if you haven't seen it yet, because it was a good video. Cheap rice, YouTube features I'd like to have. That's from last week. Okay, so that's all the subjects that I had lined up. I was going to play some music, but geez, it's already pretty late, and I can't talk while I'm playing music. So let's do this. I'm going to play 2 tracks. I'm going to watch the comments while I'm playing them so that you can see. In fact, I guess you can. How should I do this? Yeah, well, I guess you can. I can't just show what I'm playing, so I guess you can see my face. Tell me, I'm going to play 2 more tracks, 2 ambient tracks that I've set up. Tell me which one you like best, the first one or the second one, and I will make that the one that I put up this week. Okay, so stand by, and that'll be my outro. So I don't have names for either of these tracks yet. Let me put in the headphone. Let me check that this works. I'm going to try a dramatic shift in microphone from this microphone to the one from the iPad, so I won't be able to talk. This is the outro, but hang around and tell me which one you think works better, and I'll say goodbye to the people who are going now, and see you again next week. So the one that I want is the mic in the front panel. Pink. Okay, can you hear me? Oh, yes, that works. Those are my two tracks. Which one do you reckon, the first or the second one? The second track has the boom shakalaka. The first one is the, there's some people who like the first one better. Funky Fish Fry. I like that. I think I'm going to use something like that. I like it's got the aquatic background thing. The second should be the theme in an old school RPG. Yeah, well, actually, that's kind of, I see what you mean. I didn't make it thinking of that, but I kind of see and agree with that. So I'm going to take a vote. I've got one for second, one for first. Any more votes on which one should be the next track that I put out this week? First, another second. I've got three versus two at the moment. 4-2. So I think we're getting the first track. The first track is going to be the 1-5. Okay, I think it's a landslide. It's a 5-2, 6. So I'm going to make that first track. I'm probably going to clean up the second track a little bit more and make it a little bit. It's not perfect yet. And who knows? I might make the next track that I put out the first one that I use Ableton for. So we'll see. Oh, wait a minute. Second is making a comeback at the moment. But I think the first one's probably got the more votes. So I'm going to make both of them anyway. So you're going to get both of them. It's just I'm going to make this the first one first, and then I'll come back. So thank you for joining me again this week. I've been a bit late. I'm sorry I don't know what was going on with the streaming thing. I get the feeling it was a problem with the software, actually, not with my connection. Very glad that you could all join. I hope you enjoyed the show. I always enjoy having you guys along. Nobody still, whose view I do respect, who says second. But okay, I'm going to go first. I've decided it's first for now. But in any case, I'll see you guys again next week. You guys all stay cool. And don't forget, follow my Facebook, follow my Twitter for all the action stuff. And see you guys soon. Check out my blog, which I put up tonight on Facebook. I'll put it on Twitter a bit after this as well with the recommended video stuff. And tell me if there's any videos you can think of that you think define Japan video blogging that I didn't think of, that inspire you perhaps. And yeah, sorry about the technical problems, but it's me. And thank you, by the way, Fox Morris, who provided the awesome thumbnail that I'll be putting on this. That's going to go on this afterwards, because I love it when you guys provide me with thumbnails. So that's all cool. And that is it. Peace out. See you later.